Title: The 1930s Secret: Why Your Modern Life is Actually a Sensory Prison. Stop believing the 1930s were just a decade of misery, because you were missing the most incredible secret of the century. We look at those grainy black and white photos of the Great Depression and we see struggle, we see dust, and we see poverty. But what if I told you that the people living in those small American towns were actually experiencing a level of human connection and sensory richness that you will never ever feel in our high-speed digital world? You think you're connected because you have 5,000 followers, but you are living in a ghost town compared to the vibrant, high-stakes reality of a 1934 village. Today, we are stripping away the myths. We're going back to a time when the air tasted like wood smoke, the roads were made of actual earth, and the most exciting moment of your entire week was hearing a single voice come out of a wooden box in your living room. This wasn't just a different time, it was a different way of being human. And by the end of this, you're going to realize that we didn't just lose the horse and buggy, we lost the very thing that makes us feel alive. The first thing that would hit you, the absolute shock to your system, is the silence. But it wasn't an empty silence, it was a heavy, living silence. Today, you are constantly bombarded by the hum of electricity, the roar of tires on asphalt, and the ping of notifications. In a 1930s small town, the loudest thing you'd hear on a Tuesday morning was the sound of a distant hammer hitting a nail, or the rhythmic clip-clop of a workhorse pulling a wagon. You could hear the wind moving through the cornfields from 3 miles away. Your ears would actually start to tingle because they'd finally be doing what they were evolved to do: listen. And those roads? Forget the smooth black ribbons of heat-absorbing asphalt we have now. We're talking about dust, deep, fine, powdered earth that coated everything. When a rare Ford Model A rattled past, it didn't just drive by, it kicked up a golden cloud that hung in the air for 10 minutes. The world felt tactile, it felt real. You felt the grit between your teeth and the sun on your neck in a way that felt like a constant conversation with the planet. But here is where it gets truly wild. The center of your entire universe wasn't a smartphone or a television, it was the general store. This wasn't a sterile Walmart with fluorescent lights and self-checkout. The general store was a sensory explosion. You'd walk in and the smell would knock you sideways, a mix of cured ham, raw tobacco, kerosene, peppermint, and aged floorboards. This was the town's nervous system. If you wanted to know who was sick, who was getting married, or who just bought a new tractor, you didn't check a feed. You leaned against a wooden counter and you talked, you waited, you listened. And people actually looked at each other. Can you even conceive of that? When you walked down the street, you weren't looking at a screen, you were looking at faces. You knew the life story of the man fixing the roof and the woman hanging her laundry. Privacy, as we know it, didn't exist, but neither did loneliness. You were woven into the fabric of the town so tightly that you couldn't fall through the cracks. You might be thinking, but they were poor, they were starving. And yes, the struggle was massive, but that struggle created a high-voltage bond. When the harvest failed or the dust storms rolled in like black mountains across the horizon, people didn't retreat into private rooms to scroll through bad news. They gathered, they shared what little they had. There was an incredible high-energy urgency to every meal and every gathering because everything was precious. Let's talk about the porch. The American porch in the 1930s was the world's greatest social media platform. After the sun went down and the heat of the day began to break, everyone, and I mean everyone, moved outside. You sat on the swing, you watched the fireflies, and you waited for your neighbors to walk by. There were no air conditioners humming to keep you trapped inside. You were out there in the evening air, participating in the great neighborhood review. You'd yell out a greeting, they'd stop for 20 minutes, and you'd solve the world's problems over a glass of lukewarm lemonade. It was interactive, it was live, and it was the heartbeat of the community. But then came the magic, the one piece of technology that changed everything: the radio. Imagine a world where you've never seen a movie at home, never heard a song you didn't play yourself, and never heard a voice for more than 10 miles away. Then suddenly, this glowing wooden cathedral in your living room starts talking to you. When The Shadow or Amos and Andy came on, the entire town went dead quiet. It was like a religious experience. The energy in the room was electric because you knew that millions of other people were listening to the exact same word at the exact same second. It gave people a sense of belonging to something massive, something cosmic, without ever leaving their dusty porch. And the food? You've never tasted a peach until you've eaten one grown 50 yards from your back door, ripened by the sun, and eaten the same day it was picked. There were no preservatives, no plastic wrap, no mystery ingredients. Everything was seasonal. Everything was intense. If it was strawberry season, you ate strawberries until you turned red. If it was winter, you lived on the jars of preserves you'd spent all summer sweating over a hot stove to prepare. Every bite was a victory. Every meal was a celebration of survival. You want to know what the biggest flex of the 1930s was? It wasn't a fancy car or a designer bag. It was a Saturday night in town. This was the peak of human excitement. People would pile into wagons or beat-up trucks and head to the square. This was the only time the lights stayed on late. The atmosphere was carnival-like. You'd see people you hadn't seen all week. The kids would run wild in the shadows, while the adults talked business and politics under the street lamps. It was the one time a week where the cozy turned into climax. The sheer high energy of 1,000 people gathered in one place with no distractions is something we have almost entirely lost. But here is the twist you didn't see coming. We think we've progressed. We think we're better off because we have instant access to everything. But in the 1930s, the routine was the reward. There was a profound peace in knowing exactly what your day looked like. You woke with the light, you worked with your hands, and you rested with the dark. Your brain wasn't being hijacked by algorithms designed to keep you angry or anxious. You were governed by the seasons, the weather, and the needs of your neighbors. The tragedy isn't that the 1930s were hard. The tragedy is that we traded that deep, soulful connection for convenience. We traded the smell of the general store for the smell of a cardboard box from an online retailer. We traded the porch swing for the couch and the smartphone. We are more connected than any humans in history, yet we are the loneliest generation to ever walk the earth. Those people in the 1930s with their dust-covered shoes and their battery-powered radios had something we are starving for. They had a sense of place. They knew who they were because everyone around them knew who they were. They were essential. In a small town, if you didn't show up to the Saturday night dance, people noticed. If you didn't put your lights on, someone knocked on your door. So next time you feel overwhelmed by the digital noise, just remember that golden cloud of dust on a 1930s road. Remember the sound of the crickets on a porch where no one was looking at a screen. We think we've built a paradise of technology, but we might have just built a very comfortable cage. The 1930s weren't just a time of depression. They were a time of deep, undeniable expression. They lived a life that was louder, brighter, and more real than anything we see through a 6-inch glass screen. The question is, if you could trade your high-speed internet for that high-stakes community, would you actually do it? Or have we become too addicted to our cages to ever breathe that dusty, honest air again?